Hello, my name is Tiffany. Welcome to my home. I am the dyer and maker behind Latah Fiber Co. A couple admin details. You can find me online at Latah Fiber Co. That's Instagram. You can find my shop online at latahfiberco.etsy.com. If you'd like to message me, you can do that through email, lvfiberco@gmail.com. I usually record and upload my podcasts on Thursday to YouTube. I also, if I'm going to update my shop, I update it also on Thursday. So Thursdays are a bit busy for me. Most of the time it goes well. Occasionally there's a few glitches, but that's all right. It's still fun. Okay, let's move on to questions. I did have one question this last week regarding what type of fibers I carry in my shop, and do I carry anything other than wool. She had a wool allergy, so she was looking for something that would be non-wool. Now, there are cellulose fibers such as cotton, tencel, bamboo, hemp, which are all good alternatives for wool allergies. I currently don't have a distributor for those, but I am investigating and trying to figure out what are my options, what would be some good options, what would be good quality cotton and bamboo, what would be, something that would dye well because I use natural dyes. I don't know that plant fibers would take the dye as easily as the wool does, but anyway, I just need to do a bit of research. So the goal is that yes, I would have some plant-based fibers also in my shop. So stay tuned, and I'll keep you posted on when those arrive. Speaking on that, this hat, which I finished last week, has merino wool and bamboo in it, and then it also has the tweed. So there are those options, but having it strictly a cellulose fiber with no wool, that's a little bit more, I just need to do more research on it and go from there. So I'll keep you posted. Thanks for the question. It was a great one. Okay, let's move along to what I'm wearing. I have a pair of wool socks on because it's snowed here in my hometown of Spokane. Several inches actually, and it's pretty cold. I'm also, I don't have this wrapped around me, but I do have a shawl on my lap keeping me warm. And so I'll talk a little bit about that. This is the Ramble shawl by Andrea Mowry, and it's a brioche, two-color brioche shawl. It's pretty long, and it wraps around, keeps me nice and warm. A couple things about this shawl is that I made it out of 100% alpaca. I have the gray alpaca and the white alpaca. I spun the alpaca from a vat and then created this shawl. You start at this end where you're just doing alternating rows of color, and then you just keep going and going and going, and then you add the brioche, and the brioche is this section here. You create brioche by knitting the row twice, and it creates this plump, dense fabric that is very warm and cozy. So, and plus this is made out of alpaca, which is very drapey and warm as well. So I love this shawl. Now there is one thing about it, because alpaca has a density and a drape to it, It's somewhat slippery. So when I have it wrapped around my neck and then my coat, it does okay. It stays in place. But if I take my jacket off and just have the shawl scarf around, it will pull off, and sometimes it's fallen on the ground. So a way that I combat this is to either tie it at both ends. I usually tie it and then put it right here and cover it with the big drapey part, which is usually right about here. This part comes down in a V shape. So I know that you can use shawl collars, which is like this cuff that you just, they're about this big around, and that keeps your shawls in place. Okay, so that's what I'm wearing. Let's move on to projects I've completed. I showed you this hat. This hat I spun out of 3 ounces of merino, bamboo, and tweed. And I originally designed this hat, it's a 1x1 rib, to, I made it for my son. And unfortunately, it doesn't fit him. He's got a big adult size head, even though he's 9. It doesn't fit him. It doesn't cut. It's beanie-esque, but it doesn't come. It sits right on the top of his ear. It doesn't come down over the ear. So he's going to use it for one of his stuffed animals. But it was fun to spin up, and I think I talked about it in a previous episode. The neps in it were a little challenging to draft. They kept clumping, and so I would get some thicker yarn. So this is about a worsted weight yarn. It's really dense, and it would be warm, but unfortunately it doesn't fit my son. So lesson learned, I need at least 4 ounces of fiber. Now this one is also a beanie style hat. I spun the fiber. This is merino and alpaca, mostly merino, but there was a little bit, 25% alpaca, I believe. And it's a beanie style too, 1x1 rib, and it does cover most of my ear. It's a very warm, dense, so soft. The alpaca is just so delightful. Soft and warm, luxurious. So I completed these in a weekend, these 2 hats in a weekend. Not strictly knitting, but I did do a lot of knitting, but not strictly. So I also finished my Christmas socks. Now, if you recall, I was doing these DPN style 2 at a time. So I would knit an inch on one of the socks and then go over to the other and knit an inch. So they were worked in tandem, which was really nice. So by the time I did the cuff, my socks, both of them were done. I didn't have to then start the other, which is usually what I do if I'm doing DPNs. If I do circular needles, I like to do 2 at a time so that they're done together and finished. When I'm done with the socks, they're done. I don't have to pick up and then knit the whole other sock. So this pattern I just kind of did on my own. You knit, I think I knit 4 and then slipped a stitch, knit 4, slipped a stitch. So you get like these cute defined knit stitches going up your sock. So I did that on the top of the foot, but not the bottom. And then I started it on the leg of the foot up to the cuff. So There you go. My Christmas socks, done before March. Yeah. That's how it goes sometimes. You just kind of, you know, I hadn't actually planned to do a lot of gift knitting for Christmas. So I thought, oh, I'll make socks for my husband, my son, and myself for Christmas. And then in that process, I decided to do a couple gift knits, and my socks got ousted to after Christmas. I didn't even cast on until the end of January, I think, or even February. I think it might have been February, the first part of February, before I cast on my Christmas socks. But here they are, and they're great. I'm excited to wear them. So, those are my completed objects for this week. Let's talk about what I'm casting on. I am going to cast on another pair of socks because I always have socks on the needle. And actually, socks are great as gifts too. So I like to have them on the go all the time. I've decided that I'm going to cast on with this. This was dyed. I did an experimental dye. I had seen someone do this and I thought, oh, I'll try that. So normally yarn comes like this, and this is called a hank. This is called a cake, and this is what you knit from. You can't really knit from this. You would just get a twisted mess. So you take this, you put it on a skein winder or a Swift, and then you use your ball winder and it comes out onto this. So that's what I did, is I caked it up, and then I placed it in the dye pot just like this. The dye absorbed to the outside of the yarn faster and then slowly leached towards the middle. Now I did take a syringe and squirt some of the dye into the center because I wanted it to kind of fade from dark to light to dark. So that was my goal with this. We'll see if it if it turns out that way. Now this yarn I did buy at my local yarn shop as a experiment before I got into dyeing. This has nylon in it. It's wool and nylon. I can't remember the exact. And it does have stellina, which is the speckles of silver in there. So this is lace weight yarn, so I might double it and just make some shorty socks because those are fun too. So that's what I'm going to be casting on. I do have some dream knitting. I'd like to do the vest I talked about last week. So I might cast that on this weekend, as well as a sweater. I'm thinking of the Go Lightly sweater by Knitty McPurley. She's here on YouTube if you want to follow her. She does great designs for all different body styles and sizes and things like that. So I really do appreciate the ones that I've seen her design and put up. So there's another one that she has too that's kind of got this bat wing effect. Not a full bat wing, but it's very beautiful, and I think it would look nice on my body style. So I am thinking about knitting those two from her. The Go Lightly one has like it's fitted through the body, but the sleeve has kind of a poof sleeve effect, and then about just below your elbow, it's tight against your arm to the cuff. So the balloon is kind of out this way. It's very beautiful. I would like to knit that one. So those are kind of my dream knitting ideas and what I'm thinking about, what I'm thinking about casting on this weekend. So stay tuned for next week. All right, let's move on to shop update. I am bringing 4 newly dyed yarns to the shop this week. Most of them are worsted weight. I do have 1 DK weight. Let's start with my worsted weight. Okay, let me get organized here. My colors this week were 2 of them are pretty similar, slightly different, but similar enough. So this is my 100% superwash merino wool, 219 yards, 4-ply, worsted weight. This color is called Selkirk Sunset. Now, the name of this one came from the mountain range that overlooks the lake that my family and I like to visit in the summer, Priest Lake in northern Idaho. The sunsets there tend to be purple, pink, and red, all kind of at the same time as you're watching the sun go down, and if there's clouds in the sky. So this color represents that. You have the purple, the pink, here's the red, and it's beautiful. I love that sunset. I'm somewhat of a photographer, and I enjoy photographing the sunset. And that sunset in particular, it almost always is purple, pink, and red. Just if there's clouds in the sky, that's what it gets. Those are the colors that it pulls, and they're beautiful. So this is the Selkirk Sunset worsted weight. And what you could do with this is a lot. It's very plump, but it does have that super wash. So you could use this for sweater, vests, hats, mittens, anything like that. It's a good hard-working yarn. So that's the first one. Now this one is DK weight. It is 100% fine superwash merino. It's 246 yards. It's a 4-ply. And again, DK weight. Now this one is called Rockwood. I named this one Rockwood after an area of Spokane where I grew up. My grandparents lived in that area and we would visit them quite often. You would go up Rockwood Boulevard to their house. So this reminded me of them, and so that's why it's called Rockwood. It's a 2-toned color, kind of a peachy yellow, peachy. There is some yellowish details in there, but it's mainly peach and this purpley brown color. So again, you could use this on hats, scarves, vests, sweaters, cardigans, but it's a fine superwash merino. So it's a hard-working yarn, and yet it's soft and plump as well. So it's a great yarn. Okay, the last 2 are both worsted weight yarns. They're 100% superwash merino. They have 219 yards. They're 4-ply, and again, they're worsted. These 2 yarns were part of my experiment last week. There is a video up here on YouTube if you want to watch it, where I hanked up the yarn and dipped it into the pot and dyed it, then pulled it out and re-twisted it and dyed it again. So what I got out of that was very tonal yarn with the same dye. One is purple and one is green. Now, These two are named by some viewers of my podcast. Thank you so much for watching and putting in. Last week I had asked for some ideas on names and said that I would post and do a shout out for those people whom I picked. So the first one is this one. And this is Amethyst Cloud. Thank you to Debbie for the name suggestion. I loved it. These are purpley. They've got shades of mostly purple. Some are kind of like a dark gray, but mostly purple. It is a soft, plump, hard-working yarn. And I just love the color details in here. That technique was pretty time-consuming, but I love the effect, and I look forward to using that again for sure. So thank you again, Debbie, for the name idea, Amethyst Cloud. Okay, the other one that I dyed in that same manner, I used a different dye. This one was Hawthorn Rhubarb Extract, and when you dye with that, you get yellow. So to shift the color to this lovely green, I used iron as an afterbath to the dye. And it took a little bit, but it finally shifted from yellow to green. Now, there is some yellow in here, but it's mainly this olivey, mossy green color. So this one is called North Facing. Thank you, Clive Forever, for the name suggestion. I loved it. This is a wonderful, again, plump, soft, hard-working though, superwash yarn. So it would be great for any project that you would have wanting to cast on. So thank you again, Clive Forever, for the name North Facing. I loved it. It was a great process for those two yarns to dye it in that unique way. Very much so. Thank you to everybody who put in some name suggestions. I enjoyed reading through all of them and picking what I thought looked the best for these yarns. Thank you again. Okay, some more things coming to the shop. They're a little bit different than yarn. Fiber. Last year I dyed up roving in different dyes, and I thought I could not use all of this, so I'm going to put it on my shop. So if you're interested in that, look for it today. All of these are Cheviot wool, which is a white wool, and I dyed them all naturally with natural fibers, with natural dyes. The blue is indigo. So there's this one. And these are all 4 ounces. So good project size. This one has a little bit of pink in it, right here. That was kind of fun. You do it in this braid, and then you dip dye, which was really cool. This one is a bit more exaggerated. I dipped part of it in the blue dye and part of it in the pink dye, and then chained it together. So again, these are all 4 ounces. You could spin and create a very fun yarn. Okay, and the last two are pink and purple. And again, these are all Cheviot. I bought several pounds of the Cheviot natural wool, and then I weighed out 4 ounces, braided it, and then dyed each one. Okay. Those will be entering the shop this week as well. That's it for the shop update this week. If you see something you like, please check out my shop. Okay, let's move on to spinning. This week I'm going to work on spinning this fiber. This is merino, bamboo, and tweed, and it's similar to the hat that I knit up for Hudson, except this is purple and pink, obviously. So this is 3 ounces, which is not quite enough to make a hat. So I will probably find some merino to spin with this to make it the 4 ounces. I'm not 100% sure. I do have a carder, which I could weigh out an ounce of the merino and then blend it into this on the carder. So I might do that. That would definitely give me the 4 ounces needed. So that's probably what I'll do. Yeah. Follow me on Instagram because I'll post my adventure with this. I also, last week, I believe I had talked about the merino alpaca in the gray and white color. There's 8 ounces of that. I will probably divide that out into 3 bobbins worth to spin. So I could do that this week. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking with that. So yeah, that's my spinning vibes. If you have a question on that, I spin with an Ashford spinning wheel that my husband bought me a couple of years ago, and it's a great workhorse wheel, so it's done me good these last couple of years. I really enjoy it, actually. That's it for me this week. Thank you so much for joining me and all my fiber goodness. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and I'll be sure and answer them in the next video. Have a great day. See you next time.